He invented the concept of a personal brand, was taking selfies before Wi-Fi existed, and even took legal action against God for the right to create paintings. And you still think the Renaissance is just Michelangelo with a hammer and chubby cherubs? Meet Albrecht Dürer, the first artist who realized that talent alone isn't enough. You also need to know how to market yourself. He portrayed himself as Christ, not as blasphemy, but as brand positioning. He created a series called Apocalypse Engravings and sold them across Europe like a Catholic blockbuster. Dürer signed everything he made and went to court when people copied his work. In 15th century Germany, when most people had never laid eyes on a book, he was already fighting for copyright. So why is Dürer still studied as just another dull German engraver when he's one of the most intriguing figures in art history? A genius, visionary, and influencer who carved stories into wood and invented the first demotivator. Today, we're discussing what connects Dürer and Elon Musk: self-promotion, branding, and vision. His initials were more than just a signature. They were the world's first art logo, what links him to interior door hardware, and what secrets are hidden in his engraving, Night, Death, and the Devil. My name is Ksenia Altenthaler. I'm an art historian and educator. You're on my channel, where I discuss art like no one has dared before. Dürer was born in 1471, a painter, engraver, geometrician, architect, military engineer, theorist, watercolorist, logo designer, and of course, an influencer. A Swiss Army knife with a cutter instead of a blade. He drew hairs so lifelike you'd want to pet them. He depicted apocalypses that make you want to pray, and calculated body proportions as if Pythagoras himself left him instructions. Dürer united North and South in his works by blending two artistic worlds on one canvas before stamping his AD on it like an Amen. According to his autobiography, which he wrote as the first German painter to do so, he had Hungarian roots. His father, Albrecht Sr., a respected jeweler, moved to Nuremberg in 1455. So it turns out that Germany's greatest artist was Hungarian. Imagine how much that irked Hitler. In the 20th century, the Nazis decided this couldn't stand. They even exhumed Dürer's father's remains to measure his skull. They aimed to prove that he wasn't Hungarian, but a true blue Aryan. The clinic was out in the field. While the surname Dürer sounds distinctly German, it actually originates from the Hungarian word ajtás, meaning door. His father simply translated their last name into German to preserve its meaning. Ajtás became Dürer because door in German is die Tür. Over time, pronunciation morphed it into Dürer. The family crest featured wide open doors. Dürer could very well echo Christ's words from the Gospel of John, "I am the door." Essentially, he did just that with his self-portrait as Christ. Not blasphemy, but a positioning of himself akin to the Lord. The Dürer family had 18 children, but only 3 survived to adulthood. Albrecht was the third child. His father hoped he'd become a jeweler, but the boy had different ideas. By age 10, he was secretly drawing, knowing his father wouldn't be pleased, yet feeling it as essential as air. Eventually, his father relented and apprenticed him to Michael Wohlgemuth, a Nuremberg artist. For 3 years, Albrecht meticulously learned engraving techniques in Wohlgemuth's workshop, perfecting line, form, and proportion. When Albrecht turned 18, his father sent him on a journey typical for apprentices of the time, a chance to travel and see the world. He went to Colmar, not Calamari, a medieval city in Alsace, modern-day France. Then he travelled through the Netherlands and southern Germany, exploring this wondrous new world. Young Albrecht eagerly wished to meet contemporary master Martin Schongauer. Although he even brought a letter of recommendation when visiting Schongauer's studio, news without the internet travelled slowly. Schongauer had been deceased for a year by then. However, Schongauer's brothers were alive and shared with Dürer a technique unknown in Germany at that time, copper engraving instead of wood engraving. This was a new method popular among jewelers, requiring meticulous precision that not everyone could master. In copperplate engraving, a complex skill few conquered, the artist moves the metal plate rather than manipulating an engraving tool with their wrist. Dürer excelled at this challenging technique and created some of his most famous works using it: Saint Jerome in his study, Night, Death and the Devil, and Melancholy were all realized through his mastery of copperplate engraving. He ventured into copper engraving and soon found himself in Basel, a hub of the printing industry. At just 20, he had already crafted 250 book illustrations, each distinguished by their strength, intrigue, and flawless technique. His reputation quickly rose. After 4 years of travel that ended as abruptly as they began, he received a letter from his father. "Son, it's time to come home. I've found you a bride." At 22, Albrecht was betrothed to 15-year-old Agnes Fry, daughter of a wealthy mechanic who owned precision tool workshops. The family was influential, with the father serving on the city council. Rumour had it there were even distant ties to the Medici family. Most importantly, her dowry of 200 guilders was too significant to decline. Dürer did not rebel. He was an obedient son. He painted a self-portrait with curly red hair and luxe fabric to send to his unseen fiancée. It became a lifelong image for Agnes, whom he'd never met before their marriage, a marriage that lasted until his death. Was it a happy union? Doubtful. They had no children or evident passion. His friend, humanist Willibald Pirkheimer, noted, "Their life didn't work out, perhaps because they had no children, or perhaps because their life didn't work out." His letters to Pirkheimer were filled with teasing and stories about Pirkheimer's escapades, but revealed little about himself. No romantic dramas or women's names. Dürer seemed enamored solely with art, or perhaps a bit with himself, with his melancholic gaze and meticulous perfectionism. The wedding took place in June 1494. By September, Dürer had left again. He sent Agnes to the countryside due to plague threats and headed off to Venice in 1494. While Nuremberg lingered in medieval shadows, Venice dazzled with gold arches and vibrant ideas, like stepping from a Lutheran choir into a Verdi opera, luxury without limits and art without constraints. He mingled with the Bellini brothers and possibly Titian and Giorgione. Observing and comparing, Dürer realized Italians viewed Germans as backward colorists. He wrote Pirkheimer, "Many are my enemies. They replicate my works in churches everywhere, only to claim they're tasteless because they're poor." Essentially, they plagiarized and then shamed him for it. Pirkheimer is stirring the pot. Show them what you can do. Paint in a way that leaves them overwhelmed. Thus, Dürer creates The Feast of the Rosary, a masterpiece that serves as a triumphant rebuttal to the Italians who had criticized the Germans. The work displays colour, composition, and technique at an unprecedented level. Even Bellini respects it. Others copied it like students during exams and felt affronted. This piece marks the beginning of the German Renaissance. Fueled by inspiration and anger, Dürer returns to Nuremberg no longer just as an artist, but as a brand with his own strategy. He opens his own painting workshop and embarks on a new plan focused on entrepreneurship. Workshop, prints, marketing. Dealing with clients is often challenging. They have their whims and their nerves are frayed. Payments are delayed and deadlines loom. Clients want art that's more striking and delivered faster. Dürer understands that real money lies in engraving, mass production, and replication, a precursor to mass market art before it was even a concept. His godfather, Anton Koberger, owns the largest printing house in Nuremberg, with 24 presses at his disposal. Agnes and Dürer's mother sell at the markets, where engravings fly off the shelves like hotcakes. Melancholy, Adam and Eve, Apocalypse. He is truly an entrepreneur. His popularity isn't just due to flawless technique, it's also about the mysteries he embeds within his works. Hidden symbols in Adam and Eve represent the 4 temperaments through animals strategically placed in the center of the composition. Let's take a closer look at this engraving. The theme is a classic one. The Book of Genesis, forbidden fruit, humanity's first step towards sin. However, in Dürer's hands, it's an illustration enriched with hidden meanings. During his Italian travels, he meticulously studied ancient sculptures and works by Renaissance contemporaries. This influence is evident in how precisely he constructs figures according to classical standards. Dürer spent considerable time studying human figure theory throughout his life, writing 4 books on human proportion, which he started in 1512 and revised multiple times over his life. Adam and Eve serves as an illustration of these thoughts. Surrounding the central figures are animals representing not just any fauna, but 4 ancient temperaments. The cat symbolizes a choleric nature prone to anger and pride. The rabbit embodies a sanguine temperament, lively, quick, easily swayed by pleasure. The ox represents phlegmatic calmness, yet susceptibility to gluttony and laziness, while the elk signifies melancholic tendencies, introversion, anxiety, greediness, and despair. In ancient physiology, a person's character was believed to be determined by the balance of 4 bodily fluids: blood, lymph, yellow bile, and black bile. Initially, these were in perfect harmony until Adam bit into the apple, causing the system to fall apart. The world transformed into what we know today, and Adam and Eve were cast out of paradise. At Adam's feet is a small mouse, a seemingly random detail, but nothing in Dürer's composition is accidental. This mouse symbolizes Adam's naivety and blindness. It is unaware of the cat lurking nearby, just as Adam fails to perceive the consequences of his actions. To the left of Eve is a serpent coiled on the branch of a fig tree, representing evil and temptation, while across from her, perched on a rowan branch that Adam holds onto, is a parrot. In that era's symbolism, the parrot signified wisdom and good tidings. Good and evil are thus depicted as distributed across branches of one tree. This imagery reflects the choices each person faces in life. Moreover, there is melancholia, considered the first demotivator in art history. The engraving bears this name through its Latin inscription in the upper left corner on a bat's wing. The meaning of I remains debated. Some interpret it as a Roman numeral for 1, suggesting part of an intended yet unrealized series. Others see it as an imperative form of the Latin verb to go away. Thus, it might be read as a command: melancholy, go away. The word melancholy itself comes from the Greek term for black bile, which was considered one of 4 temperaments by ancient physicians, the most dangerous one associated with sadness, fear, loss of willpower, and madness. In the engraving, melancholy is embodied by a winged female figure who could be either an angel or ghost. It's ambiguous. She wears a wreath made of buttercups and watercress on her head, plants believed in medieval times to combat melancholy. This condition was linked with dryness and heaviness, hence water and flowers symbolize its opposite. Above her head hovers Jupiter's magic square, a talisman representing reason and order. A grid consisting of 16 cells, where the sums of the numbers in every row, column, and diagonal always equal 34, was once considered an intellectual talisman, a symbol of protection and order. On the figure's belt are keys and a wallet, representing authority and wealth, often associated with Saturn, the planet of the wise, somber, and powerful. Saturn was believed to favor individuals with a melancholic temperament and was thought to provide the gift of insight at the cost of melancholy. During the 15th century, reason was regarded as the highest virtue. In Dürer's interpretation, melancholy is not just sadness. It is an intellectual tension bordering on helplessness. It is surrounded by symbols of knowledge, a compass and book representing geometry and learning, a sphere and polyhedron indicating architecture and volume, scales and an hourglass signifying measure and time. Yet all this is powerless against unraveling the world's mysteries. Thus, melancholy remains silent, waiting. The central element of the composition is a millstone, symbolizing relentless yet fruitless thinking, a perpetual motion of thought that is endless, heavy, and futile. This theme continues in his engraving, Night, Death and Devil, which explores victory over fear and temptation. At the top of the engraving lies a fortress atop a mountain, symbolizing heaven's kingdom, a destination every Christian strives for, despite obstacles. Oak leaves adorn the horse's mane and tail as signs of resilience and spirit strength. But challenges await the knight. Behind him lurks a devil with a boar's snout and 3 horns, a figure with an unhealthy interest in him. On his left stands Death, a skeletal figure crowned and shrouded, raising an hourglass as a warning. Time passes swiftly, all is transient, and death approaches inevitably. Amidst this scene stands one loyal companion who instills trust, the dog, a symbol of faithfulness that follows its master through all trials. Dürer challenged divine authority by viewing himself not merely as a copier, but as a creator. His exceptional egocentrism set him apart, No one, before or after, dared defy the chief medieval architect, God himself. Before Dürer's time, artists were perceived as akin to printers who transferred divine visions to canvas via some celestial Wi-Fi connection, unacknowledged in their own right for their contribution to art creation. Albrecht firmly disagreed with the norm and dared to challenge God in his own way. He was the first to establish personal boundaries through an artist's signature logo, AD, as a mark of authorship. By inscribing his name on a painting, he essentially created a personal brand. He painted an unprecedented self-portrait in the guise of Christ, which art expert Thomas Hoving described as the most arrogant, provocative, and magnificent in art history. It was a frontal portrait, a style reserved at that time solely for saints, while secular portraits were usually in profile. His hands were positioned in a gesture resembling a blessing, and his appearance closely mirrored the divine. The inscription read, "This is how I portrayed myself, Albrecht Dürer." Curtains down, applause ensued, and the clergy were left in shock. Dürer began signing everything, paintings, engravings, drawings, as part of his self-promotion across Europe. He travelled around Europe on promotional tours, showcasing his etchings and marketing himself much like a modern brand. This handsome, ambitious German with curly hair won admiration even in Italy, where northern artists were regarded with skepticism, akin to the current attitude towards Russian rap. Yet Dürer was beloved. Even Giorgio Vasari, the first art theorist and staunch advocate for Italian artistic genius, openly admired Dürer. With fame came imitation. People started forging his work. Unfazed, Dürer took legal action, creating the first precedent for copyright protection. 9 years after his controversial self-portrait, he embarked on an even bolder endeavour, a nude self-portrait capturing every anatomical detail. Why immortalize only a beautiful face when equally remarkable features deserve attention? It was either brilliant narcissism or delusions of grandeur. Even during illness, he weekly requested water and a mirror. Though those close to him feared he had lost sanity, he pioneered the first analytical self-portrait tradition, later followed by Raphael, Caravaggio, Rembrandt, and others. This meant he observed himself in various states and expressed those emotions on canvas, both as creator and subject. Albrecht Dürer achieved what many artists hesitate to attempt even today, presenting himself effectively as an artist, concept, and brand. He didn't wait for recognition. Instead, he boldly signed each piece as a declaration of his unique perspective. He used religious themes as a means to discuss humanity. He didn't create within the confines of his era. Instead, he pushed those boundaries to their limits. Through his engravings, he introduced the first mass-produced art product. His treatises laid the groundwork for art theory, and his self-portrait set new standards. An artist as observer, subject, and creator all at once. Dürer wasn't the first in everything, but he was the first to understand how to be an artist in a framework where not only form and content mattered, but positioning did too. So what do Dürer and Musk have in common? They are both geniuses of self-promotion, branding, and envisioning the future. The similarities between Albrecht Dürer and Elon Musk include everything except rockets. Both are visionaries with huge egos and an extraordinary knack for self-publicity. Both transform ideas into products, themselves into brands, and the future into a spectacle. They create not just for today's audience, but for future generations, caring little about who might despise them as long as they're talked about. Musk sends Tesla into space. Dürer distributed his apocalypse through prints. Musk tweets. Dürer carved philosophical manifestos into wood. Musk puts logos on everything. Dürer etched his initials into history. And D wasn't just an initial, it was the first historical mark that signified an artist's right to authorship, vision, and stance. 5 centuries later, it remains relevant. Subscribe to the channel, hit like, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments.